Hi guys, and welcome back. So today's video is actually going to be two pieces that I'm working on at the same time together. And I know I've talked about this before, but I absolutely love doing multiple pieces within a series. It's just so much more engaging for me, and I like how I can expand on the story a lot more by having two pieces. And it's also a really interesting and exciting puzzle for me to work on, because I have to make sure that they both are balanced in the same way and they are mirroring each other, but each one has its own design elements and its own story to tell. So it's just a really interesting set of problems to have to solve when you're doing multiple pieces that are intended to be viewed together. And I love that challenge of working through it and figuring it out and then comparing the two and seeing what things I can do to bring them closer and what things I can do to make them more unique to themselves. But basically these two pieces are representing life and death. So nothing too novel or unique about that, but I did want to use, for the most part, very recognizable symbols from life, for life and death. For life, she has a wreath made of plants, she has flowers in her hair, and I specifically designed her face and her eyes to have more of an upward shape to it. So it's leading more into a more positive light potentially, and I really wanted the shape of her eyes to be more open and accepting of the things she's going to see. So yeah, for her I went with more plant-based ideas, and for death I went more with bones for the icons behind the death. So I hinted a little bit at her face where she's going to have more of a skull, or a skull pattern on her face, and that's going to become a lot more apparent when I do the coloring for this piece. I'll really emphasize that and give her a lot more of that design within her. But I also did details like teeth for her necklace and a bone wreath behind her, and so I did want to go in with very recognizable symbols and icons for life and death. But I did also want to put in a few details that actually correspond with the opposite. So it's like they're being tied together. So for life, her throat is actually completely slashed. It's not even connected to her body. So I wanted to show that kind of an element to her, where she actually is life and yet she would be dead. So it's not like it's some super deep, amazing thing. I just really like the idea of having ties to the other piece so that they really come together. And for death, I did have some plants in there, and I think I ended up taking them out. So now that I'm talking about it now, I'd actually like to go in and add a very specific element of a flower specifically on death to kind of reflect the similar area of where the throat is cut on life. So they both have that kind of mirroring effect. But I also wanted to make sure that they had similar setups. So like you can tell, they obviously have, the composition is almost identical. They're both straight facing. They also have a circle around them, and for life I wanted to make sure that it was more of a positive space. So the circle was filled up with the plants that made the wreath. And for death, I wanted to do more of a negative space, so it was creating the circle around it with more of an outline of the bones. And I think that normally when I tend to do two pieces that go together, a lot of times I tend to go in very literally. I do basically the same shapes, just with a different design or a different icon behind it. So this one was a slight departure from that, and I really like that because it was different enough that they're more companions rather than perfect mirrors of each other. And I like that it was both creating this positive and this negative, but they're still taking up the same amount of space within that. So they still look very much like they go together. It's just enough of a difference that it really pops. And I actually did the process a little bit differently for this piece. I do it every once in a while, but what I actually did was I went in with my sketchbook first, and I started sketching ideas with just a regular pencil on paper before I went in digitally at all. And it was really a lot better of a process for me. I've noticed that a lot of times I go in digitally and I'm ready to start working on a piece, but I'm not completely sure about the idea or the concept, and I just want to sketch things out. But when I'm working digitally, since it's kind of more of a sterile input, it's this really slick screen, it's a computer program, I feel like it's kind of deconnecting part of my creative thought process. So for this one, when I went in with just the paper and the pencil, I think it was a lot easier to put down a lot of ideas and work through things and just throw things down until I got something that I was really happy with and excited with, where I feel like digital tends to be a little bit more imposing, and I feel a little bit more like what I'm putting down needs to be good right from the get-go, rather than something that I can put it down and see what it looks like and just keep developing it. And it was definitely a process that I liked a lot. And I've been doing that a lot more now. Instead of going straight into digital, I'm starting to do sketches, just putting things down, getting myself working and thinking, and then going to digital with an idea already, rather than going to digital not knowing what I'm going to draw or what exactly I want to produce. So that actually really helped. And what I did do, and you can probably notice at the very beginning of this video, is I took a photograph of those tiny sketches. They were really small, like probably that big. So I just took a photograph of them and I put them in Photoshop so that I could work straight off of that. I could get that same raw energy that I could in the small thumbnail that was done with a pencil, but I could put that into my digital stuff. And I find that that's actually really helpful when I feel like I'm being too stiff with something. I'll do a thumbnail that I can do a lot looser, and then I take that same thumbnail and then I work on top of it. That way I can get the correct details in there, but I still have the energy below it of the thumbnail, and it just helps it to read a lot more energetic, and it has the mood that I want it to a lot more. So one of the things that I feel most excited about this piece is actually the line work and the brush that I used to do it. So for a long time now, I've been wanting a brush that's a little bit more textured and it has a little bit more of a grit to it and a hand-run look to it. So my typical inking brush is very hard and very opaque and very solid, and I love that, but there's a lot of pieces that I want to give it a little bit more room to breathe and a little bit more of a sketchy quality to it, especially so I can leave some areas a little bit less refined. I really want to move in a direction like that, where I can give it a lot more life and really change the line work depending on how and what I want to show, rather than being nailed down to doing very refined, solid shapes. But I have never really quite found the right concoction of type of brush and brush settings to get the texture that I want. But on this piece, I decided to try it again, do a brush, figure out what settings will make it work. And now that I've done this brush, it's really obvious what my issue is with all the other brushes that came before it. And that's that the other ones, I'm pretty sure I had the opacity turned on even just a little bit, so that, or the opacity jitter was turned on a little bit, so that when I went in lighter so that I could have a thinner brush stroke, it also made it more transparent, which means when I'm done with the line work and I'm putting color underneath it, it looks a lot messier and not controlled in the way that I want it to. It just looks kind of not quite there, not quite refined enough. And I never really pinpointed what the reason was, but this I'm really excited about because it did work in the way that I wanted it to. I made sure that the opacity jitter was set to 100%, I think is what it is, so that it is only black or it is not there. So where it's textured, it's creating these little flakes of black or little patches missing within the black, but there's no area that's kind of transparent. So it was definitely a really good step in the right direction. I don't think this brush is my final end goal as far as a textured inking brush. There are a few things that I'd like to fix and find a better brush for and work on a better brush for, but overall I feel really good about this. I actually ended up, I'm not sure where it's at, but I actually go in and color the skin a little bit because I want to make sure that it worked with the line work, because a lot of times when I've done sketchier, looser line work and I've gone in to color it, that's when it kind of starts to fall apart. They don't mesh well together anymore. And this I was really excited about. I loved how it looked together, and I did try going in and coloring the line work itself so that it would blend in with the color of her skin, and that also was a really good effect. So overall, I just feel really good about this. I feel excited about moving forward with more of a sketchy brush for my line work and really diving into figuring out the perfect brush for me. And the pack of brushes that you've seen me using for the past little while now, and I've been absolutely loving, is actually a brush pack that belongs to another artist, and he also does YouTube videos, and his name is Ahmed Aldoori, and I'll have a link to him down in my description where you can check out his videos, and I believe most of his videos, he has a link in his description to his brushes. So I highly recommend checking out his channel because his art is absolutely amazing and these brushes are absolutely amazing. I've been really enjoying having new ways to experiment and be a little bit more painterly with my stuff. So yeah, I highly recommend this brush set. But that is pretty much it for today. This is just the sketching and the inking of these pieces. I've actually already started coloring them and I'm really excited about working on that because I've had a lot of fun and I've tried a few different things for coloring and I feel really good about the direction these are going, and I feel like I'm learning a lot from this, so I'm having a lot of fun with these. And the second video where I color these will be out pretty soon because I definitely want to get these done pretty quickly so I can move on to more pieces for my convention prep because I have a lot to do and not a ton of time to do it. So I'm really excited about that though. I like having things to work on. But yeah, like I said, that is pretty much it for today. So thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to hit subscribe and check out my little art shop right below me. And I will see you at my next video.